Okay. Hello everyone. So today we're going to be doing something different. I'm going to upload two videos today. So stay tuned. After this, I'll upload a gaming video as I normally do. But today we're going to be doing a reaction video. I have the video right here. So we're going to be doing that today. So we're going to be reacting to the Falklands by Oversimplified. So something which I normally don't do, but yeah. Okay. Let's start.
English mariner John Strong. Hi, Anthony Carey, 5th Viscount of Falkland.
Okay.
I would very much like for you to go to Chile and locate the wreck of a Spanish treasure ship for me. Okay.
And it was John Strong who discovered the Falklands. So this is an oversimplified video. I'll leave the link to the original video in the description.
Hey, I found some islands.
They always do this once, so yeah.
The English were probably not the first to discover the Falklands, but they were the first to write it down.
True.
They found it to be cold, wet, and miserable, just like home. So they established a...
Yeah, but it's like half the world away from home, but it's just far south enough to be like home, so yeah. Well, I'll just give you some geographical thing in this. So the south of Chile and Argentina is made up of an area called Patagonia. It's basically ice sheets everywhere. Ice sheets, mountains, glaciers everywhere. The Falklands, which are not really tied up to a continent, basically were at one point a part of the thing before they separated. They were a part of not South America. They were a part of any landmass. 100% they were a part of any landmass before they separated from it. So, and this is just my opinion. I feel that they should have been a part of another landmass because Falklands are pretty much almost like Patagonia. I mean, yeah, but I'm not sure if they were. So, I think they were.
...to colony in 1765, unaware that the French had also discovered the islands and done the same a year earlier. And for a while, the two were unaware of each other's existence until presumably there was an awkward moment where they ran into each other. Then the Spanish showed up and told the French that a couple hundred years earlier, the Pope drew a line on a map and said all of this belongs to Portugal and all of this belongs to Spain, and that the island was in Spain's territory and they would like the French to hand over their settlement. Now, since the two were good friends and Spain was willing to pay in cash money, the French obliged. But since they were still a little bitter about the recent 7 Years' War thing, they made sure to warn the Spanish not to let those dirty English on the other side of the island take
Okay, so this was done after the 7 Years' War. Oh yeah, 1767, yeah.
over. So Spain went over to the English and explained, Pope, line on map, Spain's island. And the English said, yeah, right, this is our island. But the Spanish had more guns, so they kicked them off anyway.
Yeah, but if they, on the settlement the island was not even a part of the main two islands the Falklands are made of. It was made of another island. So they only claimed that, so that's just funny. Yeah, I think they claimed the entire Falklands, but he just made a mistake there. Anyways.
But then England threatened to go to war. So Spain went to their friends in France and said, hey, it looks like stuff is about to go down. You in on this? And the French Minister of War said, yeah, and we'll launch a full-scale invasion of England and party like it's 1066.
Okay. I need to do this. So 1066 was the year the Normans, who were people in northern France, descended from the Vikings, conquered England. So that's why just yelling will party like it's 1066. Anyways.
But then King Louis XV said, 1, you're insane, and 2, you're fired. Sorry, Spain, we're not ready for a war right now. So Spain had to give the English their settlement back, saying it's still our island. And the English said, no, it's our island. Then some colonists in North America got a bit rowdy, so the English had to leave their settlement to go focus on that. But they left behind a plaque that said this is totally still our island. So the island...
Okay. Yeah, they left a plaque, but I think the plaque would have been a lot bigger than that because who'd see it? I mean, who'd see it if it's that small?
Island was in Spanish hands, but then a French guy, no, not that one, that one.
Yeah, Napoleon, not that one.
Turned on the Spanish, took over most of the country, and captured King Ferdinand VII. And in response, the Spanish colonies in South America started vying for independence. So Spain had a little bit on its hands and also had to leave the islands. And for a couple decades, the islands were left uninhabited except for the penguins, some fishermen, and the gauchos, which are basically like cowboys but cooler and Spanisher. A merchant from Hamburg living in the now independent United Provinces of the Rio de la Plata heard about the feral cattle roaming the...
Basically, the provinces of Rio de la Plata, the provinces of Rio de la Plata basically meant the two countries of Paraguay and Argentina.
Falklands and thought it would be a good way to make some money. So he got permission from both Buenos Aires and the British government to set up trade there as a private venture. Some American ships came down and began hunting whales and seals around the islands, and Verney wasn't too happy about it. So he asked Buenos Aires for some military assistance in defending the islands, but Buenos Aires said, meh, do it yourself, gave him some weapons, and appointed him governor of the islands. So he seized the US ships and arrested their crews. In response, two things happened. First, America came down and said, nice settlement you have there.
Okay.
Would be a shame if someone destroyed it.
Okay,
And then they destroyed it.
Yeah, they destroyed it. I was going to say that they'd 100% destroy it since, well, they get rid of it.
Second, Britain heard Verney had been appointed governor, meaning the United Provinces, actually now the Argentine.
Yeah, see, Argentine Confederation, that makes up Argentina. So when they heard that, they thought Argentina actually claimed the island since they made him governor, So, yeah.
Federation were officially claiming the islands as theirs.
True.
So Britain showed up and said, hey, didn't you see our plaque? And since they had more guns, they kicked them off the island. And the Falklands remained firmly in British hands for the next century.
Okay,
They officially became a crown colony in 1840. Port Stanley became the island's capital in 1845. The cattle hides from the island weren't worth much, so they imported sheep from Britain in 1851. 2 world wars came and went, and all this time, the Argentinians never rescinded their claim over the islands. Now it's 1976, and after a couple
1976. So the last time they claimed it was early 1800s, so 150 years.
civil wars, a new brutal military dictatorship sponsored by the US fight against communism has taken control in Argentina. And by 1981, this guy was in power. The economy had been struggling for a long time, and Galtieri had been unable to improve the situation. Now, if you ever find yourself the brutal
Go to war. That's the thing. Go to war. Go to war or blame something else. Those are two things.
military leader of a struggling South American country and you start getting into hot water, here's a bit of advice that has been tried and tested throughout the centuries. Start a war to distract everyone
Yeah.
from their misery. Galtieri knew how popular he would be
Yeah.
if he could finally take back Argentina's last Malvinas from the occupying British. There had been proposals to cut British military spending, and the ice patrol vessel HMS Endurance had been withdrawn from the area. So the Argentinians assumed the British may not even bother doing anything about the invasion. After easily capturing the largely uninhabited South Georgia island, 600 Argentine troops were sent to the Falklands. The small number of Royal Marines and other British forces stationed there put up a small amount of resistance, but in the end had to surrender to the larger Argentine force. Crowds in Argentina celebrated and knew that they were wrong to assume the British would do nothing, because the person in charge of the
Margaret Thatcher was in charge of the UK at the time.
United Kingdom at the time was this lady. Thatcher was a somewhat controversial prime minister, but whether you loved her or hated her, there was no denying
I'm in
that she was
between.
tough.
I'm in between. Love or hate, I'm just in between.
Like metal. Iron, for example. She immediately declared an exclusion zone around the islands and organized for a task force of over 100 ships to set sail for the Falklands. The United Nations expressed concern at the Argentine invasion. All South American nations apart from Chile backed Argentina. And since the United States had propped up the
Yeah, Chile was basically the worst enemy of Argentina, and they still are. Well, the Brits are, but yeah, on the South American continent I'm talking about.
Argentine dictatorship, Reagan went to Thatcher and said, could you maybe just let them have the islands? And Thatcher
No.
said no. Okay, here, have some weapons. Fighting a war
Really?
over 8,000 miles from
They were supporting Argentina. Okay, I'll show you. They were supporting Argentina, but they were helping the British. A little confusing, but yeah.
home was a logistical challenge for the British. They requisitioned civilian cruise ships and containers, and they used British-owned Ascension Island as a forward base. By the time they arrived at the Falklands in May, the Argentine forces had had time to entrench themselves. The first task for the British was to gain control of the seas, which they did easily. On the 2nd of May, a British submarine sank an Argentine cruiser. The sinking was controversial, as it occurred outside the British exclusion zone. It was also the largest loss of life in a single incident during
Oh
the war.
wow!
And in response, the Argentine Navy
Really thought the largest loss of life would be in the battles on the island, but okay.
withdrew from the islands. The next task for the British was to gain air superiority. While the Argentine Air Force controlled the skies, they were able to inflict considerable damage on the Royal Navy below. Days after the sinking of the General Belgrano, 2 Argentine Superetendars carried out a raid on the HMS Sheffield and sank it with an Exocet missile. For weeks, the Argentine Air Force would continue to carry out raids and inflict heavy casualties on the Royal Navy, with British Sea Harriers doing their best to take out as many of the Argentine aircraft as they could. While the battle in the skies raged on, San Carlos was chosen as the best landing site for the British ground forces. An SAS raid took out Argentine defenses on Pebble Island, and the HMS Alacrity sailed through Falklands Sound to flush out any Argentine supply ships. The landings began on May 21st, with Argentine aircraft carrying out full-scale raids on the task force ships taking part in the landing, damaging several and sinking a few. But anti-aircraft cannons and sea harriers shot down many of the aircraft in what became a major turning point for air superiority, and a beachhead was successfully formed. Then the ground troops began their movements out of San Carlos, across the north towards Stanley, and south toward the Argentine stronghold at Goose Green. In the following battles, a clear trend emerged. The Argentine conscripts put up a good fight, and with the rough, muddy terrain, the war was by no means easy for the British, but with highly...
Yeah, both the British and the Argentinians knew the terrain. In British, yeah, it's rough and muddy. While in Argentina, especially in northern Patagonia, it is also a bit rough and muddy. But in southern Patagonia, it's just cold, mountainous, and glacial.
Skilled Royal Marine commanders and parachute regiment troops, the British would often find themselves taking on larger numbers of Argentinian soldiers, but would still come out victorious with minimal casualties. The 14-hour-long battle for Goose Green commenced on the night of May 28th. The battle ended in a decisive British victory, with over 900 Argentinians surrendering. Then, with 5,000 reinforcements arriving from the 5th Infantry Brigade, the British started preparing for their final assault on Stanley. In a series of hard-fought battles, they took control of the hills and mountains surrounding the town, as the Argentine forces withdrew, with British ships shelling their positions from offshore. Utterly surrounded, on the 14th of June, the Argentinians surrendered, and the war was over. The 2-month-long war claimed hundreds of lives and left the islands strewn with minefields that still pose a problem to this day. Argentina still claims the islands, but in 2013 a referendum was held, and the islanders voted
99.9. Wait, how many?
8%.
99.8. So, but literally, the people who live there are like 1,516 people. So 99.8 is basically everyone thing except 3 people.
In favor of remaining British. Plus, oil was just found near the islands, so the British probably aren't going to give them up anytime soon.
Yep, they're never getting that up. Okay, so that'll end the video. So hope you enjoyed, and see you today. I'm gonna upload gaming video in about 45 minutes to an hour. I'll upload another gaming video. So see you in that. But 1 minute, some things just wait. Oh, and I'm gonna I set up the Lee chest, but I'm gonna play Asphalt 9. So yeah. Anyways, bye. See you at the game.